Dollar project proposed for West End, technology to play a greater role in the Customs Department, and displaced fire victims housed in shelters in Abaco.
The Bahamas Tonight Northern Edition starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening all, I'm Megan Shepard. Thank you so much for tuning in. Topping news tonight, Grand Bahama figured prominently in the national address by the Prime Minister last evening. The Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis outlining the government's master strategic plan for this island, noting that the restoration of Grand Bahama's economy is critical to the economic recovery of the Bahamas. Sabrina Brown reports.
Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Hubert Minnis says the government's plan for Grand Bahama is well underway, with the private acquisition and management of the Grand Lucayan Strip topping the agenda.
Although this transaction is far from completed, it would not be an exaggeration to say that we will have accomplished in a few months what was not done in a decade. This year, we intend to complete the sale of Grand Lucayan and Memories property. After they are reopened, the economy of Grand Bahama will improve significantly, including with a tremendous increase in employment and related business and economic opportunities.
He says the government is also focused on the revitalization of West Grand Bahama. The government recently received application for the development of the Grand Palm Beach property.
In 2008, the previous developer went into foreclosure, and the government has now been advised that Grand Palm Beach Acquisitions Limited has entered into a purchase and sale agreement for the purchase of a large-scale resort known as Gin Submer in the west end of Grand Bahama.
The nation's leader outlines the magnitude of this development.
Grand Beach Acquisitions Limited will construct, repair, revitalize, develop, and operate 246 rooms in 3 hotels, a banquet facility, 116 branded hotel residences, 1,000 other residences, a hotel casino site, approximately 150,000 square feet of shops and restaurants, a spa and wellness retreat, 2 marinas, a 18-hole golf course, including driving range, an IFR-rated airport, a resort hospitality training academy, and an organic farm.
The investors plan to develop that property, which will be known as Bahama Bay, in 9 phases over a 10-year period, with a projected expenditure of $2,560 million. The application is now before the National Economic Council for approval. There is also an investment earmarked for the oil storage facility in East Grand Bahama. Prime Minister Minnis says his government has negotiated additional airlift for Grand Bahama through Sunwing, and a new cruise vessel, the Grand Classica, is expected to commence service soon, boosting sea arrivals to this island. The nation's chief says he's also satisfied that his recent promotional trip to Texas will reap huge dividends for Grand Bahama. Sabrina Brown, ZNS Network News.
Customs officers play an important role in the country's economy, and this past Sunday, the Minister of Finance, while addressing the annual Customs Church service, outlined new developments to come on stream in the Customs Department. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance with responsibility for the Customs Department, the Honorable K. Peter Turnquest, are part of the final day of celebrations for the Customs Department. Noting the important role the department already plays in the stability of the country, he adds that their role is about to transform even more.
There is a paradigm shift from its fundamental role of collecting and protecting government revenue and other mandated taxes to border protection and enforcement. And that will become increasingly so as the country moves towards accession to the World Trade Organization. as we reduce the reliance on cross-border trade revenue to more of an internal taxation method. And so the role of customs will change more towards border protection, detection of contraband and other illegal activities, and to ensuring that quality and sanitary conditions are enforced.
He says that he knows that the job can sometimes come with its challenges and frustrations, but he urged the officers to remain calm during times of confrontation. He says there is never a reason to be unkind, but rather stay professional and assertive.
It is our mandate to collect, to investigate, to examine, and to collect what is due to the government. And so I want to say to the traveling public, please don't put our officers through that kind of stress. Declare what you buy. We as the government are trying to rationalize our tariff rates to ensure that we do what we can to lower the burden on the average consumer and importer.
The finance minister says that now is an exciting time to be a part of the Customs Department as they continue to grow technologically. He says that in the near future, an electronic declaration system will be introduced.
You'll be able to log on to the customs system and to declare, make your declaration before you even land in the Bahamas. So you're in Miami or wherever you're shopping, you can start a file even as you go in the store. And as you pick up your item, you can check to see what the duty is going to be on it, and you can log it in a file. And by the time you get to the airport, that record is already loaded. All you need to do now is hit send, put in your credit card information and pay for your duty if you want to, or you can come to the station here in the Bahamas. The officer will have your declaration in his computer, swipe, and on your way you go.
The first female comptroller of the Customs Department, Dr. Janine Moss, also touching on the advancements in technology, which will aid in a better overall system. In other news, fire victims over in Abaco now housed at a shelter in that community. Early Sunday morning, a blaze erupted in the close-knit area of the mud, leaving dozens displaced. As we hear in this report, officials on the ground are trying to assist those who are in need. After losing all of their material possessions in a blaze that destroyed 55 homes in the mud Abaco, those residents are now in the process of rebuilding their lives. In the meantime, a shelter has been established at the Mount Olive Church of God in Marsh Harbor. Disaster officer of the Bahamas Red Cross Central Abaco, Regina Kennedy, says that the three-member team immediately began preparing for the victims' arrival.
We have provided emergency hygiene kits. We will, once we get a total, we will provide some cots and some bedding. We've provided a hot meal, and we also have soap, toiletries for the people affected, not just the shelteries, but for the long term. Also, we will provide the church with cleaning supplies, toilet paper to lessen their burden.
After an early count, it was determined that some 46 of the 170 displaced persons had registered to utilize the shelter. Kennedy is assuring residents that may need to seek shelter to do so without fear of the Department of Immigration.
As a shelter, we are the authority here, and we have never had an issue with immigration. We do have the Defense Force will be here, and that is merely to provide us with security in the shelter, and we'll get, the police will come by and check on us as is their responsibility, but we do not have issues with immigration.
She's making an appeal for donations at this time.
In the short term, we are looking for bedding, children's clothing. If your child went to Central Abaco Primary, we have almost probably 50 children who will need uniforms. We're also going to look at the long term. Those children will also need books, pencils, and other school supplies. So those are our immediate concerns. Tomorrow we've done well with food and bedding, school uniforms, shoes. We can always use shoes. I will say, people, please do not bring us something you won't wear yourselves.
Meantime, the Barry and Sheena Johnson murder trial resumed in the Supreme Court this afternoon. The final prosecution witness took the stand once again, and the court was able to view video from a surveillance camera taken at the home of the Johnsons on the night in question. Italia Hall has the latest.
Attorney Jeffrey Farquharson, who's representing defendant Paul Belizaire, asked Sergeant 772 Lorenzo Johnson to look at the report compiled by Officer Arthur on the 14th of September and asked Sergeant Johnson if he had seen that report. Johnson replied yes. Farquharson then asked him if he ever received a CD with Officer Arthur's findings. Johnson replied no. Attorney Farquharson then countered by saying that was because Johnson was not in charge of the investigation. He charged that the investigation was ran by ASP Stubbs and Dames and that Johnson is just in the courtroom faking. Farquharson then asked Johnson if Dames gave him directives in the case. Johnson replied no. Farquharson then asked the witness if he saw any evidence that a truck was at the home on the night of the murder on the surveillance video. Lorenzo said he did not know if it was captured in the video, but the truck was there. Attorney Farquharson then asked for the surveillance video from Barry and Sheena Johnson's home to be played. The video showed a car light pulling into the yard, which eventually turned off, and a man dressed in an outfit with reflectors walked towards the front door. 3 persons then rushed him to the ground. The man curled into the fetal position, while another person had a gun over his head. The man was then dragged away from the front door, and another person appeared with a weapon. At that point, Farquharson asked Sergeant Johnson if he knew the man in the video with the weapon. Johnson said he did not know, but he can say what he was told. Attorney Farquharson then asked Sergeant Johnson if he can say who any of those guys were, but Johnson said he can only say what he was told. The video showed a number of persons moving around. The lights of the vehicle came on, and someone then shot a man who was on the ground. Someone then fired a shot inside the home, and some persons could be seen running away while the man who had been shot was lying on the ground. The video was too much for some family members of the victims to watch. As for the mother of Sheena Johnson, she walked out of the courtroom crying. Paul Belizaire, Devon Hall, and Kevin Dames are accused of shooting the Johnsons at their home in Holmes Rock in September of 2015. Reporting for ZNS Network News, I'm Italia Hall.
A man injured in a traffic accident last week has died. Jamaican 38-year-old Moses Omar Leopold was a passenger in a 2007 Nissan Cube when it was involved in an accident Thursday night with a white Honda Accord at the junction of Grants Bahama Highway and Coral Road. All of the passengers in both vehicles sustained injuries and were taken to hospital. Leopold succumbed to his injuries on Saturday morning. Stay with us. The Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition continues in just a moment.